The News Day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. The Marcos administration is set to start paying pandemic debts by next year. For the ordinary Filipino, this might mean higher taxes. Shaila Francisco with the story.
The incoming administration of President-elect Bongbong Marcos may get as much as 5.27 trillion peso budget for 2023. The Development Budget Coordinating Committee approved the higher budget amid an increase in revenue collections. The Budget Department noted that the approved amount is set, but they can still tweak within the budget.
It may be tight, but we have to live within that level if we want to be respected in the international financial community.
The Marcos Jr. administration may also welcome 2023 with more taxes. This as the government needs to start paying debt incurred during the pandemic.
The next administration must find ways to shore up revenues to sustain yung stimulus program, no? Yung Executive Order 166 na yan. Okay, and pay off debts. Pagka hindi natin to seryosohin, okay? Lalo tayong mahihirapan na humiram, no?
The Finance Department, for its part, has already come up with a fiscal consolidation plan for the next administration. It includes the postponement of income tax reduction from next year until 2025. The agency also wants to remove VAT exemptions to expand the base and impose taxes on motorcycles, gaming, and others. Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez said that deviating from these recommendations could have serious implications on the Philippine economy. Some economists agree, although noting that the proposals are painful reforms.
Yung mga kaya namang sumalo nun ang magbabayad nun. Huwag mong pasaluhin yan sa mga hikahus na nga eh. 'Di ba? Pagkain, tumaas pa yan lalo. Transportasyon. Yung benefits na ma-generate nito will outweigh the costs.
For now, the National Economic and Development Authority will focus on further reopening the economy. Former NEDA Chief Arsenio Balisacan is set to return as head of the Socio-Economic Planning Agency under the Marcos administration. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
A pro-Duterte vlogger and lawyer is set to become the next chief of the Presidential Communications Operations Office, or PCOO. Let's get to know more about Trixie Angeles Cruz in this report from Camille Samonte.
From being a social media strategist and vlogger to being the press secretary of the next administration, lawyer and radio commentator Trixie Angeles Cruz has officially accepted President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s offer to be the next chief of the Presidential Communications Operations Office. As the incoming press secretary, Attorney Angeles Cruz will be in charge of PTV4 and other state-owned media channels. She will also be handling the coverage of presidential events. But Attorney Trixie will not be the next presidential spokesperson. Outgoing PCOO head Martin Andanar himself says he wants Attorney Trixie to take over. She is not new to the PCOO department as she served the office in the early years of the Duterte administration. But other than that, Angeles is known as the lawyer of former Customs Chiefs ex-Martin Captain Nicanor Faeldon. She was also a part of ex-Chief Justice Renato Corona's legal team during his impeachment trial in 2012. She also defended some expelled members of the Iglesia ni Cristo. She was also a former spokesperson of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. But in 2016, the Supreme Court slapped her with a 3-year suspension over a complaint in 2003. Her suspension had ended in 2019. Also a pro-Duterte vlogger, Attorney Trixie Angeles Cruz has now garnered over 7.6 million views on her YouTube channel and has gained over 400,000 followers on Facebook. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
The PCCO is now eyeing to start the transition process with the agency's incoming chief, vlogger Trixie Cruz Angeles. PCOO Undersecretary Chris Ablan tells the big story that they're now hoping to schedule a formal meeting with Angeles, together with incumbent Secretary Martin Andanar. Ablan says the agency is, quote, very excited to hear her policy direction under the Marcos administration. He is also hoping that this new PCOO chief will continue some of the projects started by the agency under the Duterte administration. These include the construction of media hubs, training facilities for LGU's information officers, and the proposed establishment of the so-called People's Broadcasting Corporation. The agency also hopes that their new secretary will support other pieces of legislation including the Freedom of Information Bill, which Ablan described as very delayed, as well as the Media Workers Welfare Act.
Secretary Martin Andanar would leave a legacy of expanding the coverage of the Presidential Communications Operations Office. For last 2 years, we inaugurated the Mindanao Media Hub, and right now we are trying to build a Visayas Media Hub in Cebu. That is something that we are expecting that the incoming secretary will support. We do have a current bill right now called the Media Workers Welfare Act, already passed by the House of Representatives last year, pending with the Senate, and we're very hopeful that in the final days of this Congress, it will be passed. If it won't be passed, then that's another piece of legislation that we hope incoming Secretary Cruz Angeles will also support.
Benny Laguesma says he aims to make the Labor Department more open to workers once he is appointed as DOLE Secretary. In an interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang, Laguesma said he'll be more open to hearing the concerns of the sector. And he'll also look into the existing programs of the department to see which ones need to be prioritized.
Ako ay nagnanasa o maglalayon na bababa ako sa mga rehiyon, lalo na po yung merong tinatawag na high incidence of poverty rate. Tingnan po natin, ano po ba talaga ang dapat na gawin sa tulong po nga ng mga mungkahi o suggestion. Ako po ay bukas, accessible at
We'll be back with more stories after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. while his daughter was being proclaimed as the next vice president of the country. Outgoing President Rodrigo Duterte was busy meeting dignitaries in Malacanang. President Duterte accepted the credentials of the newly appointed ambassadors from Cambodia, Indonesia, Argentina, and Greece.
The Philippines look forward to a more enhanced cooperation in various areas, particularly in bilateral trade and investments. The Philippines remains committed to strengthening its relations with all its partners in the region.
Time now for a quick look at some of today's headlines. COMELEC eyes to conduct the proclamation of the winning party lists today. Veteran actress Susan Roses will be laid to rest beside her husband Fernando Poe Jr. at the Manila North Cemetery. And round 2 of the UAAP Season 84 Women's Volleyball starts this morning. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 11 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.